Welcome, everybody, to episode 2. The title of this episode is I Am My Mother's Daughter, Getting to Know Sarah, Clarissa, Cris Duvall Drye. This episode is really special because it explores Marcia Duvall's relationship with her mother, Cris Duvall Drye. During this episode, Marcia is going to share how her mom, Cris, influenced and inspired her from girlhood to adulthood. She's also going to share some of the lessons that she learned from her mother, Cris, and how she has navigated this transition of her mom to ancestor. Marcia, how are you?
Well, I think that's getting ready to be revealed. I'm open. I have photographs of my mom sitting in front of me, surrounding the computer, and I am trusting the universe to provide what needs to be provided. As I did in the first episode, I peruse the questions. However, in almost 70 years, I've come to know that the authentic me shows up more when I haven't done some homework and, created all of these answers. So I'm open.
I love it. Everybody, this is sacred storytelling, sacred sharing, sacred shifting into the soul, if you will. And we're pulling from the wisdom of Alice Walker. And I'm a self-described disciple of Alice in many ways. I grew up on Alice, and she has this beautiful book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, Womanist Prose. And in the book, author and activist Alice Walker writes, and so our mothers and grandmothers have more often than not anonymously handed on the creative spark, the seed of the flower they themselves never hoped to see, or like a sealed letter they could not plainly read. Guided by my heritage of a love of beauty and a respect of strength, in search of my mother's garden, I found my own. So let's all take a breath, because I think those words really deserve a breath. I'm going to inhale and then exhale. Marcia, I remember you telling me stories about your mother, Cris Duvall Drye, and her creative spark and her love of beauty. Oh, love of beauty. They were some of the seeds, that creative spark and that love of beauty that she planted in her garden of life. Let's get to know more about your mom, Cris's garden of life. So let's first start off by giving some basic information about your mom, Cris, like her birth date, her birthplace, her parents' names, and any background information that might help the listener and myself understand more about who this phenomenal woman is in the spirit world and who she was on Mother Earth.
Well, she was born on the 27th of April, 1923, which means the approaching of the 27th would mark 101 years. She was born in Gaithersburg, and she went to public school in Gaithersburg, what we call Gaithersburg now. And when she passed, it had become Gaithersburg, but in reference to the first episode, Stewarttown, at the time that she was born. She moved to Pittsburgh with my grandmother after the death of my grandfather, and I shared in the first episode that my grandmother and grandfather weren't actually together, but clearly the fact that they moved would indicate there was some connection. And she stayed there in Pittsburgh until she graduated from high school. Then she returned to Gaithersburg to live with the now infamous Bert and Charlie Harris of the black and white house. Um, yeah, so she was there into her early adulthood and moved to DC a bit later. And believe it or not, her first job was with the National Republican Party. Yeah, I know, right? I'm looking at your face.
Ciao.
Well,
Now,
back in during that time, there were certainly a significant number of bona fide, authentic Black Republicans. Um, so that was her first job. Yeah.
and I think it's worth mentioning to the listening audience that before many folks in the African American community were Democrats, they were members of the Republican Party because it was the party of Lincoln.
Mm,
And we can go back and forth on Lincoln's role in the release of folks. There's so many different theories, beliefs, thoughts, but we're not going to do that. But I just
okay.
really want, yeah, I just really wanted to point that out because one of the things, everybody, that you'll notice, and this is my hope that you'll notice, is that Marcia's story, her family story, her mom's story is wrapped in history, American history.
There you go.
And that's calling in everybody.
Hmm. Well, you may not touch on it, but I'll say this as it relates to Lincoln. He was the instrument of the illusion of freedom, no matter how it how he was provoked to do it. And so, you know, Black people associate, and at that time, freedom with Lincoln. So, yeah, again, there's no, I'm not provoked to be ashamed of the truth. I'm provoked to speak it. It is what it is. So, yeah.
I'm loving that. I'm loving that. Let's paint a visual of your mom.
Mhm.
What did she look like? There she is. There she is.
24.
Wow.
Hold on now, because I'm not finished. You asked me that question.
Mm-hmm.
With my stepfather, who, as you can see, was a completely different hue of person of color, and that's at 56. And then I'm going to bring me into it for just a moment. And lastly, yeah, 62.
Wow.
So, you know, um, I guess as color goes, she was, medium complexion. Um, Initially, in this first picture, the first picture, the youngest one that I showed you, uh, propensity towards straightening her hair. It was very soft, felt cottony soft, so the texture wasn't Kunta Kinte-ish. It was more like raw cotton. Um, and then as years progressed, she really chose to wear, more often than not, wigs until much, much, much later. She was taller than me, as almost everybody in my family is. She was like 5'7", and she had a smile that would light a room up. Yeah.
I remember you telling me her style, and I just got so excited the way you described your mom's style.
Well, it's she was an enigma in that sense to me, although I guess as I made the connection between the country, the initial route, and moving to what at that time was a big city, Pittsburgh, that she was able to massage them into herself such that I've often described her as this really interesting mix of Minnie Pearl. For those of you who don't know, Google it. She was an interesting country figure. And Jackie O. Now go figure. You marry that. She could put on stripes, flowers, plaids, have a ring on every finger. And whereas more often than not, one would perceive that as being, damn near Obama, but she pulled it off with grace, and that was always just amazing to me. And I'm sure I know for a fact that I inherited that because later in my later life, my interpretation of that was, it was no big deal to me to mix mudcloth and Chanel. What's the problem if it works? So,
I think your mother's influence on you has influenced a whole community of people from DC to across the waters. And we'll get into everybody. What I'm talking about is Marcia's beautiful creation of Trade Secrets. And I think when I think back to some of the ways that my own personal style shifted as a result of being connected to you and shopping in your store and growing in your store, I now look back and say, that is Cris Duvall Drye's stamp on you and you taking what you have inside of yourself to express out into the world. I'm just looking at you now and the way that you've stacked the bracelets as only as a daughter of Cris Duvall Drye could. Some of the activities that your very stylish mother was involved in gave her an opportunity to bring people into the home for her to be as fly as she could possibly be on the streets of DC and in other places. Talk to us about some of the activities that your mom was involved in.
well, she was the Black Pearl Mesta of DC. Again, I'm so aware of how some of the terminology and even reference to people that I'm using is a reflection of my extended time here, because I'm sure that name is not familiar to a lot of people. But she didn't cower at the opportunity to gather people, her friends, um, in our home. Christmas was it was standard. It happened up until the moment that she announced that it wasn't going to happen anymore, and that was very close to her getting sick. But when I tell you that, the kids had to sit in the den at two card tables because we couldn't sit with the grown-ups at the table that had to have a leaf added to it to extend it large enough for all of the people. And then sometimes that spilled over and the basement was used. But if the basement was used, you better bet that those card tables, sometimes a poker table, because they were poker players. It was white linen and crystal glasses, and not just one crystal glass, but the wine glass, the water glass, the dessert spoon. Um, and then there was a separate table set up just for the desserts. She baked and cooked everything. I made a funny in the last episode about my aunt. Um, if she could have made peas from scratch, she would have. Well, so too my mom. Everything was from scratch. But she was, again, it's where that kind of eclectic thing came in, because she would make these incredible molds, like using fish molds and skeleton molds of jello, colored, filled with, whatever it was she fancied, at the moment. But people came from near and far, and it went on for, I don't know, 20 years. The den had one of those fake silver Christmas trees that had a kaleidoscope uh, lamp that rotated and turned it colors, and invariably my play brother, which you will hear me reference, Eric, we eventually had to come to the house 2 or 3 days, maybe a week before Christmas, because literally all of the pieces of the chandelier had to be taken down, soaked in vinegar, and then soaked in hot water and replaced. I mean, there were there were X-rated Santas that did X-rated stuff. There were, she really enjoyed and was good at entertaining. She got her life.
Hmm. Yeah, I can just imagine what that house on Kansas Avenue was at.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, it, Uptown is what they call it, everybody. Uptown. If you're
Yeah,
from, if you're
not
from
quite
DC,
though.
a certain, yeah.
Not quite. It was kind of it was solid at that time, solid black middle class. The Skurlocks. And
Mm-hmm.
again, people are going to have to Google it, but he was a very prominent photographer in DC, and happened to be, he lived directly across the street from us, and happened to be the man that came by the Vanderzee photograph of the black people in Harlem in fur coats, leaning on the Cadillac. So yeah, it was a solid block for many years.
Yeah. Your mom participated in clubs.
Mhm.
There's a whole area of scholarship now, and it's been around for quite some time, about Black women and clubs, and the clubs that eventually and also contributed to sorority life and all of the community building and the social activities. And DC, like many of our cities, had a plethora of clubs that were all featured at one point or another, I'm sure, in the Washington Afro
Oh
newspaper.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, that was a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
And so tell us about your mom being a club woman.
I don't know that she didn't kind of get grandfathered in, because what's also very real and very true is that people of color, Black people in DC at that time suffered um, from the need to apply the brown bag belief. So you could not be, it was unspoken, but you were a witness, you saw it show up. Um, you couldn't be but so dark to get access, so brown, shall I say, but to get access. And I'm not sure whether she had a set of friends um, that were of that skin tone, and she was so beloved that it's almost like I think they kind of made an exception. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the Continentals. I mean, they got seriously dressed to the nines. I mean, formal, gowns and, beaded, bejeweled pantsuits and, you know, shoes that were that tall, bless their hearts, that, I'm sure they kicked off under the table when they sat down, but the Continentals and the consorts and she was not a member of the Jack and Jills and all that kind of stuff. Um, but they were regular events throughout the year that, she had a closet dedicated to formal wear. You see what I'm saying? Um,
Well, I am the daughter of Teresa B. Garden Leeke, who had closets dedicated to African wear, trade secrets, designers, and sorority life, and then everyday wear. So I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, yeah. So it was a big deal. And eventually, as she got older, she and her cronies started up a club that was called CRS. And I'm gonna just invite you to think about that for a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna just tell you it was can't remember shit. You know what I mean? But they were
I'm sorry, you had to let
yeah,
me.
yeah. What can I say?
That was a
My
good one.
mother, my mother didn't particularly care for cursing. She would say sugar honey iced tea. Instead of shit. But they made it their business to find ways to give back to the community. So
Yeah, I
scholarships.
love that. I love that. I am feeling like we have uh, a bit of Cris with us. We've called her in. She's always here. And now I want to go a little bit deeper in how she chose to raise you and shape and inspire you. And I know that that question can go in so many different directions. And I'm here to um, open the door and to see what comes out, and then to prod along if I need to get more. So, how did your mother, Cris, raise, shape, and inspire you?
She wanted she wanted the best for me, and the reality of her life as a single mother, because as I've shared, my birth father was not a part of my life, and that meant she had to go to work, 9 to 5 every day, and there was at the time we lived on Gresham Place. Uh, it's literally a one block street between um, Georgia Avenue and New Hampshire. And there was a woman who lived on that street named Rebecca Diggs, and she was and a sort of extended member of the Stewarttown family, and she took care of children. That's what she did. And so, my mother was connected to her, and pretty much, I'm trying to think about from what age, but pretty young, um, maybe 5 or 6. Uh, I stayed with um, with Nana, because that's what my mom could do, and she felt like it was a safe place, and then I might be given the opportunity as an only child to be around other children. Um, so I stayed there, and sometimes would sleep over. I stayed there for a good amount of time. Um, you know, I feel like my mom felt most of her life really guilty for her choices. And amongst one of the most profound was her choice to not be in partnership with my father. And I get the impression that it was a choice. I don't know the underpinnings. And so it was always like she was trying to make up for that, you know, and maybe part of it is the only child thing. Again, I don't want to make this uh, definition of only children to be true of every only child's experience. But I know that my mom wanted to and did on more occasions than not just give me things. Now I don't feel like the things were replacing the love, because without a shadow of a doubt, I was absolutely, on any given day, the apple of her eye. So I don't think it was a replacement. I think it was unresolved issues having babies. It was her stuff, and it spilled over into my life. Yeah. But school was very important. Um, she was very serious about me making sure that I got an education and that I paid attention. And she wouldn't say it, and I didn't give her the opportunity very often. I'm trying to think, did I ever get a C? If I did, maybe I've cast it from my memory, but it was about B's and C's, and you got rewarded if you brought home all A's and all that. So yeah, she absolutely, from a conscious place, did the best that she could do, given the work that she had done and the work that she had.
How did your mom inspire you?
And here's this thread again. You know, that tenacity piece, that like make something out of nothing, that inspiring me to not be afraid to be and say whatever was so for me. I mean, she would cringe sometimes because I'm not, I'm to this day, I really don't know, because my mother uh, she was about, decorum. Um, And I often was not. I'm not sure what the source of that was, because she wasn't it, but she loved me unconditionally. And so even that she let be so. So
It sounds to me when you're talking about your mother, Cris, and the way that she inspired and shaped you and raised you, that freedom and full expression,
hmm.
freedom and full expression in whatever it could mean at the time or whatever it meant to her. Um,
Well, Ananda, I think she wanted for me what she was not able, willing to give to herself, because I certainly, my experience of her is not that she was free. Her choices didn't create freedom, they created bondage more than anything. And so, um, maybe it was intuitive, or without even understanding that, in the absence of the presence of it in her life, that she wanted that for me, because she understood the price that self-imposed bondage costs.
I think you just said it, you know, just beautifully the way I think our mothers often give us, many of us, can't say all, give us what they so needed or had to go out and find or look within themselves, dig deep, um,
Mm.
in an effort to make sure that your walk on this planet is a lot lighter than theirs.
Well, to the extent that that's possible, certainly seeds are planted, and then and then one must let go. I mean, the seeds are planted. Who
Yeah,
knows
because
from there?
you're gonna do what you're gonna do, you
Pretty
know.
much.
And she did what she was gonna do, and her mother and the mother before that, you know, Gladys, Ella,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody. Yeah, and if you're just tuning in and you didn't listen to episode 1, yeah, might want to do that so that you understand the names that we're talking about in the context to which the Duvall family um, has given rise to Marcia, the woman before us. What are some of your mom's best times with you? I mean, we talked about the socializing and some of the choices that she made that had you have some memories with Nana, being able to go to a caretaker's house and get to know other children. She was working. You showed pictures of your stepfather. Um, but any memories that you have, fond memories with your mom, time spent with your mom that you want to share?
My mom loved to dance, and I didn't realize I don't have that. It's right there, pictured sitting in front. But she loved to dance, and my stepdad wasn't. He didn't. He wasn't interested really in that, and so we would often go to the basement and with the hi-fi. You know, a very, 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 very extensive album and 45 uh, collection. And we would just dance together. We would just dance. And she was very limber and very free. And, she loved to watch me dance. And I love to watch her dance. And, those were really sweet moments. And I would sit in the kitchen with her while she baked. Usually it was baking, not so much cooking. And but I didn't pick up anything, which is interesting. I didn't pick up any of those threads. But and she was not really. It was one of the places where she got her life. So she wasn't really interested in passing the trade on, you know. But she would let me watch her. And, back in the day, you used to get to not wash the batter bowl, but, use your finger to get the batter out and lick the spoon and all that. And those were, yeah, those were special moments because it was just she and I, and we took a few trips,
Mhm.
just she and I,
Mm.
but my stepfather came, even though they didn't get married until 65. Um, he entered my life when we lived on Gresham Place, and I was 2 or 3, and so um, there was some navigating that. Because he kind of, in hindsight now, understand that, he wanted her. He didn't necessarily want me, but he inherited me because I was part of her. So,
Mm.
you know, um, but anytime, and sometimes we would just sit in the den. My mom liked to sit real close. She would sit real close. And, later in life as a teenager and all that, I would just be so annoyed. Like, oh my God, can you give me some space? God, lady. And now of course it's a missing that can't be replaced. But we would sit and watch. She was big on Kojak. She loved him. Telly Savalas. Yeah, she thought he was really sexy. And I can't. And what was the guy? He was Welsh, and he was a singer and a dancer. Oh my God, I can't call his name. Maybe it was like a variety show, but we would spend time like that. Again, my stepfather, that didn't necessarily appeal to him, so it would be, she and I.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think the show that you're trying to think of was Lawrence Welk.
yeah, actually, okay, I know
Was that
Lawrence
it?
Welk, but no, it's Tom Jones.
Yes. Okay.
Tom Jones. Yeah. Okay, boy. The young people, if they should actually view this, are going to have a lot of work to do because they don't have a clue.
Hey, that's what YouTube is for.
Yeah.
So your mom's life, like everybody's life, is filled with choices.
Mm.
What are some of the life choices that your mother made that impacted you the most?
Well, I don't have to pussyfoot around that one. Uh, my mother, after she left the Republican Party, became employed by the most prestigious Black law firm in Washington, D.C., Cobb Howard Hayes and Winter, um, 6th and 8th Street. And when I say the most prestigious, they represented the Daddy Grace estate and, all that. And she was, by that time, she was, had become a legal secretary. And again, her guilt and shame at not being able to give me what she thought I deserved created in her the choice to forge Mr. Hayes' signature and extort a considerable amount of money. And it was discovered, and the law firm next door was Carl Moultrie. And if you're a native Washingtonian, you know that that is the name of the courthouse here in DC. And Uncle Carl adored my mom, and they made an effort to, well, actually, they did collect the sum of money, and I don't recall, I'm not sure I ever knew how much it was, but considerable. Um, but she would not take it. And Mr. Hayes's wife, let it suffice to say, felt maligned, and she did everything she could to make sure that my mom went to prison, and she did. For 2.5 years, at first, she was on North Capitol Street at the Women's Retention Center, which isn't there anymore. I'll never forget the first time that I went to see her there. Even though she knew people and all that, Mrs. Hayes again made sure that it was as difficult and uncomfortable as it could be for both she and I. And there were, at the time, they had glass partitions. And so you couldn't touch the person or any of that. You had to pick up a phone and talk to them. And she was moved to Alderson, West Virginia. I don't know, not too long after that, 3, 4, 5 months. And she remained there for 2.5 years. The neighbors in our neighborhood made it a point to, they would call. I had my own phone, only child. That's the only childism right there. And, say to me, I wouldn't be so cute when I found out what my mother did. It was all over the papers and all of that. And what I understand today is that I stuffed it. I mean, I didn't welcome all the myriad of feelings that came along with that. I didn't welcome it, and I stuffed it. And yeah, so this only child without the person in the home that was the source of my belief, because my stepfather was not, and I'm able to be considerably more objective about why that is. But at the time, I wasn't. I was 14 or 15, so um, it was it was a very difficult period. We would have to plan, and they, maybe, I don't know, Ananda, maybe 3 or 4 times a year we would take the drive down there and have to stay at the little rickety motel down the road. And invariably, one of those play aunts or play uncles or something would go, because it wasn't about me and my stepfather going alone. Yeah, I was. I laugh about this often. Like, I'm 5'2", and I say that like, it's a shorty, but I was 5'2" in the 6th grade. So I always thought, and others did as well, that I was going to be this statuesque person. And, and I wasn't. So, but I'm saying that to say that at the same time, if you can imagine, relatively short, little stubby being, but I got my menstrual cycle very early. And so I had breastises and, you know, and unlike most of my most of my classmates, women, girls didn't. And so, I know that now. I understand that, those play aunts and uncles and stuff were concerned because he was my stepfather, and he was not particularly a loving, caring person. And again, I've done enough work to get a better understanding of why that was true. But yeah, I think if there was one single thing other than marrying my stepfather, but that was small potatoes compared to going to prison.
And that choice that she made and then the consequence of the choice shifted your life and your location.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Oh,
let's talk a little bit about that because we're gonna dive into that in the next episode, everybody. But just to give people just a little bit of the impact of the choice and the consequence of your mom's choice.
well, clearly, my mom was prepared and had been preparing herself prior to the actual sentencing. I think she knew that they were going to find her guilty. Um, so she had conversations with my uh, not real aunt again, but she was the cousin of my stepfather, and they lived in Philadelphia, and there was a girl uh, who we were the same age, and so I was sent in the 10th grade, the beginning of the 10th grade. I was sent to Philadelphia to to live for 3 years until I left for college.
Very powerful, the choices of our parents and how they impact us. Can't get out of it. It's part of living. And in living your life, what seeds of wisdom did your mother, Cris, plant in your garden of life?
The only way to get something different is to do something different, and I've spent many, many, many years doing the same thing like she did, really expecting a different result, a way out, a easier, softer. Um, no, going around something has not shown itself to be the solution for me that creates even the possibility of comfort. Um, it's about going through. It's about going through. I think she, without knowing, gave me that. I'm sure she would have wanted for me to have realized it and done that work way sooner than I have. But the good news is that it didn't get left undone. So, yeah.
Okay. Ashe, Ashe. So speaking of this wisdom of going through, when our parents make their transition, you go through. You go through. How did your mother's transition to ancestorhood affect you, and it's still affecting you.
I shoved that in the closet too. That was fodder for me to really put on the garment of self-pity and the garment of being a victim, like nobody else's parents ever transitioned. Um, and I think it was left unaddressed and manifested itself uh, in some very self-destructive ways. Um, again, well, I don't know whether it's again or not, but you know, my stepfather, as a result of his personal life experience, which was that he came from a completely barren family. There were two sisters and one brother, and they, including him, produced no children. There was an adopted child. But as a result of that, he ain't know nothing about birthing no babies, you know what I'm saying? He ain't know nothing about uh fathering, but again, at that time I was not able to understand that. What I understood was that he was mean and distant and and all of that. And so, you know, it I was the victim. I was the victim of my mother's choice. You know what I mean? And so really for a while, it certainly didn't mitigate that I missed her and I loved her, but I was very angry at her. And anger is not something that was okay really to display. It was distasteful. No, my stepfather did it, but my mother clutched her pearls. It was distasteful. And certainly I don't know that a child, adolescent though I was, still a child knows how to give themselves permission, you know, to say, Ma, I'm really fucked up with you. I'm messed up with your choices here. I'm angry. Because that's not an acceptable response, real though it may be. So, you know, uh, that stayed buried for years. I mean, in the literal sense, but it came out twisted in my own behavior and choices. So,
A lot of living, a lot of lifing.
yeah, man. Well, yeah, life is to be lived, isn't
Mm,
it?
it is. So now that your mother has been an ancestor, uh, what type of relationship do you currently have with her now that she's an ancestor?
Yo, man, now I talk to her a lot. You know what I mean? I talk to her a lot. She's all over, my sanctuary. You know, my mom had they went to Puerto Rico one year, like I want to say, uh, not long after they were married. So she was still pretty young. And she had a color pencil drawing of herself done. I keep looking this way because it's like right there. She's looking, you know, right at me. And I showed you 3 pictures. There are probably 25 more. you know. And I think I shared the story in the first one of how, her original intention was to name me Marcia and not Marcia. And so, whenever I come upon someone who, is like questions, well, what's the print? Is it, or is Marcia, right? They always go there first too, which is really, it's always been so curious to me because I'm thinking, but that says Marcia. Um, so I talked to her, um, and I honor my choice to have her surrounding me, um, because it is now about all of the flowers that she planted. You know what I mean? All of the eclectic wisdom that she gave me, all of the style that she gave me, all of the opportunities to friggin' color outside the lines. So, yeah.
Why is it important for mothers and daughters, if they can, why is it important for those that are willing to have the relationship with their mother or with their daughter?
Well, I mean, what? The source that made the decision to house you for an extended period of time and feed you the nutrients that they fed you, or not feed you the nutrients, but the point is they kept you alive such that you could enter and have unsung experiences and opportunities. I mean, pretty simple. If you're given the choice to be in relationship with that being, then be fearless no matter what and choose to be. From the side of the mom, I can only suppose, you know what I mean? Because I don't have that experience. And while my chosen career in the last, I don't know how long it's been now, 15 years plus, is to interface on a daily basis with children. And certainly there are occasions where, and parents will say to me, you have such an impact. They're with you more than they're, in a waking state with us. So I mean, there's kind of that side of it, but from the side of a mom, I would have to imagine. But when I look at this picture as I am doing now, there is no doubt in my heart that it has to be one of the most profound opportunities to practice, practice, practice unconditional love. Yeah, baby, I see you, and you know, um, yours is way more recent than mine. So it's the soil is still fresh, and so I just want to take a moment to invite you to be in the experience that you're currently in, right here, right now. You're muted.
Ah,
Ah,
yeah, that's to keep the noise from U Street out.
uh, okay.
Yeah, I'm always in the space of my mother, Teresa B. Garton Leeke, as an ancestor. I don't leave it. Um, I decided not to. I'm always in it. And she's here with us. She,
No, that's right.
she would be in no other place. I'm in the kitchen. My
Yeah.
my studio, part of my studio is in my kitchen, and I just look to my left, and her altar is there. I have her jewelry on, um, and those are just the things. She lives in my face, very much like your mother shows up in your face. I can't escape it
No, baby,
if I
you really.
tried. I really can't. I used to think that I could, but every day I see more and more and more of her. And it's my privilege to be able to cry the tears, to be able to remember, to be able to have daily conversations, because I do. And I remember saying, Mommy, when you go, I'm always gonna talk to you. And my nickname growing up was Puppy. And she was like, would you just give me a day off? Could you just give me a day off?
But that's so Teresa. Oh my God.
Yeah, and what was so funny is when my mom passed, I was with her. I had the privilege of serving as a spiritual midwife. Did not know that until the next day, because I clearly could not identify who I was in the mirror. I was like, oh, I'm not here anymore. Someone else is here. Like there's been a shift, a transformation of sorts, and later revealed that that's what I was doing. And within 30 minutes of her passing to ancestorhood, I heard her voice.
Mm.
And I heard her voice tell me, all right, Madeline Sherrill, my given name, do what you have to do, but I am not in this body, and let's get moving. And it was just me in the room. And it was like, you already know that. So don't get attached to this body. Let's get it moving. And that is something that she says. And I do know that she passed straight into ancestorhood because of the ancestral healing work that I was blessed to do, a year, 2 years before she made her transition, and a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks before she made it, I had done the work to heal her mother's side. And they had come to visit, as they had done in the past, to say that they were there for her. Not that they were coming for her, but and I was able to share that with my mom. My mother's spirit is I'm discovering every day I discover something else about who she was as she walked the earth. um Whether someone tells me something, I read something, or I just have a feeling about it, and it's really powerful. It pisses me to fuck off at times. It makes me angry. It's like a whole wave of emotion. Most of all, it makes me grateful, that I was able to say everything that I needed to say to my mother in the physical realm. Um, I, she gave me the biggest gift, to be there, to
Yeah.
be, to be that person, to be there, because she knew if I wasn't, that would have messed me up. That would have effed me up for a lifetime. And we had already spent time digging me out of some stuff. Didn't need to add that to the list.
Yeah, I feel you,
Um,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
like really and truly, the last several years, my entire life, I've been up underneath her, and wouldn't have it any other way. Um, and I continue to be, which makes serving as a person who's holding sacred space for you to share your story, and especially this episode, to talk about your mom. I remember seeing you at Unity of Washington D.C. a few days after. You don't know this, but I saw you, and it was a bunch of sisters. You were wearing white, and your mom had made her transition, and your birthday. Um, It was around that time. And it, or maybe I might have it skewed up in my mind, but it was 2001 and you were wearing white and all these sisters were around you. And um, I knew your mom had made her transition because I remember seeing your mom in the store,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
and it was just, it never clicked in my head that that could happen.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, right.
like it never, I never clicked in my mind that somebody's mother could pass. Like, it's not like I hadn't seen it. And,
Right.
but my mother's mother was still alive. My mother was fully freaking alive. And hey, you know, I was sweet 36. What did I know? You
Mm-hmm.
know, but
Mm-hmm.
I will never forget that. I never forget that.
I
You
didn't
were
know you right.
you were in white linen. And that's a it's you
Mm,
were it was really it really like whoa.
mm.
So this episode, I think, I don't know, we've got many more to go, but this is one of mine. I had wanted to know about your mom, um, and the impact that she had on you because you've had an impact on me. I've been in your home, sharing yoga, and I would see the pictures,
Mm.
and in the store, and hear stories. So yeah, thank you for letting me share a bit because my mother loved you and you loved my mother and you honored my mother. I was so grateful that um, you had time with her, that you
Yeah,
had time with her.
that was an extraordinary gift.
You had time.
Extraordinary, unexpected, like, uh, just precious present. She gave me parts of her that after knowing her for, I don't even know, 20 years or something, 15 years, that I'd never, I'd never been given, you know?
Mhm.
So Ashe, yeah.
Yeah, you got to see her in her most vulnerable space. She's a very tight Scorpio, tight lipped, tight everything. And throughout the pandemic, when she would make the trek to Connecticut Avenue, and I'd find out later, it's like, what the are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm coming early because Marcia has made it a special, she's opened it up early before others. She's like the exclusivity of like it all, true Scorpio diva. But I don't think it gets any closer than dressing and styling, adorning folk in some ways. I mean, it gets
I mean, people can, and often do, perceive that as one dimensional,
mhm,
an outside job. And yes, literally, the garments are on the outside, but
mhm,
to the degree that you resonate, to the degree that comfort is brought to you, to the degree that your gait even shifts, um, it, the desire and the possibility is that it's shifting you from the inside out, not from the outside in. So yeah, I have my mom to thank for that profoundly.
yeah. It's a very healing gift too. And I saw it in her and her self-love and her self-acceptance, her self-worth, and you know, even the things that we haven't released yet because they are the designer and they have to go to it has to go someplace special. wherever it goes. And some of it is on my back because I'm having it redone. And then others, it's going to, yeah, sacred. That's the word that's coming to me about the mother-daughter relationship that I had. I can't say that about everyone. It's sacred. It's sacred because it's ongoing and it doesn't end. And my mother knew that about me. She knew that I was going to be more than all right, that I was going to have my days, but that at 58 and 7 months that I was ready to be a grown adult. And I thank her for giving me 58 years and 7 months of a magical freaking childhood slash adulthood slash a childhood slash adulthood, sliding back and forth, with her and my dad. So yeah, I think that's a great way to bring this episode number two, y'all, two, two, to a close. What a journey we're on together, um, and listeners, what a journey you're on.
You're just silly.
The journey. Mm. I want to thank you, Marcia, for sharing so deeply once again. And I want to give you a moment to say a few words, if you like, to the listening audience before we sign off.
Joe, man, I'm not going to struggle because the constancy is the same as it was on number one. Just be fearless. Be fearless. Choose love, and love is not always hearts and flowers. So please give yourself permission.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for some Marcia commercials. Those are my little ways of saying we'll have a little something for you before we get to the next episode. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Ashe.